This is Sociological Critical Lens with Mrs. Anderson. If we are doing a sociological approach to literature, we focus on the character's relationship to their society, whether or not they have positive or negative relationships in their lives, any tensions that may be present, and in what way does the story reflect societal values such as the American dream or family values or even personal religious beliefs that the character might have. Some other questions we may ask may be, who are the people in the character society, just so we can identify them with the list? And then also, in what way does the character society influence their decision making? Now remember, their society may include family, politics, business, religion, and the community in general. Today's author is Robert Hayden. He was born Asa Bundy Sheffy on August 4th, 1913 in Detroit, Michigan. He died on February 25th, 1980 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He was a poet and essayist. He won the U.S. Poet Laureate Award in 1976. He was a foster child, had a very difficult childhood, and often described that era in his life as the dark night of the soul. He had severe visual problems which prevented him from playing in sports, but he did manage to attend Detroit City College, major in English and minor in Spanish. Those Winter Sundays by Robert Hayden.
Here is a poem that comes directly out of my boyhood in Detroit. It's called Those Winter Sundays. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made bank fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the coal splintering breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house, speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the coal, and polish my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?
If we were going to analyze this poem using a sociological critical lens, we first want to determine who are the people that make up the narrator's society. In this case, the narrator is a young boy, and the only other person that's in the story is his dad. So it's just his father. Then we want to determine whether or not this relationship is positive and negative. From the perspective of the dad, I would say the dad really loves his son, he's providing for his son, and he seems to have a positive relationship. He's doing what he's supposed to do. But from the perspective of the son, he says, even though his father does all these things, he doesn't thank him, and that he speaks indifferently to him. So that's kind of sad, and it's leaning in a negative direction. So we can see both positive and negative relationships depending on which character you're focusing on. And then the tensions that are present, we do have the weather. It's pretty cold, cold enough to crack his hands, and for the dad to be up starting a fire in the fireplace. And another thing is the attitudes of others. So if the son has a bad attitude, even though the father has done all these things out of love for him, that's going to create stress. It's going to create stress for the dad, and actually it would create stress for the son as well. And then we have feelings. We have a couple different feelings going on here. We have the father has an overwhelming feeling of love for his child. He's even polished his shoes while the boy was asleep. And then we have this feeling of indifference coming from the son himself. And we don't really know why, we just know that it's there. And then also another thing that's creating tension or stress is the description of the house. He says he's fearing the chronic angers of the house. So I can nearly hear the wind blowing and the floorboards creaking just from that description alone. So all these things are creating tension for the characters in the story. The third thing we'll look at is in what way does the poem reflect society's values. Well, think about their family. What family values do they seem to uphold? Well, for starters, it's a very, very hardworking family. They don't seem to have a whole lot of wealth, but they work hard for what they do have. There's not a lot of politics present, but the stereotypes are there. We have a father providing for his home. So that's a traditional role for dads to play, and he's definitely living that out. And why would he be doing this? Does he want something? What does this character want? What is his American dream? So it's not explicitly stated. We can infer that just from what's happening in the story and within the poem, what he's describing, and then what's happening in the culture of that day. Those are things we would look at if we were analyzing any type of literature with a sociological critical lens.